Welcome, everybody. You've built the map.
We've been through 3 seasons of understanding mental health in the modern world.
Season 4 is building on the understanding.
This season, we're going to go domain by domain: work, home, digital, relationships, identity, and take a look at what it actually means to design the spaces that you're occupying.
Not optimize it, not discipline your way through it.
Create it,
Either you're designing your field.
or something else is.
Welcome to Roaming Mind Season 4.
I feel like it's a pretty common experience that you try to make a change, whatever that change may be. It can be diet changes, it can be exercise changes, it can be less harmful free time on the weekend.
No, you're trying to set some kind of boundary or some kind of new,
Mm-hmm.
what's the word? Some kind of new, not limitation, but something new, or reducing something for
Mhm.
yourself. And
Yeah.
go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say I think boundary was the perfect term. You're trying to set new constraints for yourself,
Yeah.
which directly ties in with boundaries. That's how it goes. And then what ends up typically happening is we go and we let's say we're trying to diet more or whatever, and we go to a party at a friend's on a Saturday evening, and they're like, well, why don't you just eat these wonderful, delicious Doritos with guacamole and sour cream and cheese? I don't know, something that just looks like your arteries are going to clog. And you're like, nah, I think I'm good. I'm trying this new diet thing out. And they don't always respond in a positive manner. I don't want to say nicely because that's not necessarily the case, but then be like, come on, man, you can have one, dude. It's just a diet. You'd be fine. You go back to that shit tomorrow.
Well, yeah. And it's hard because I've been on both sides of those where I've been the first, just like have one. And at least for my part, usually it's not out of malicious. I'm not like trying to be like, ooh, you gotta break your diet, or you.
Right.
Sometimes I've been there when I'm like, I'm gonna go out to friends. I'm just not gonna have a drink tonight. I'm just gonna go. People be like, you're not drinking? Why? Are you sick or something? And I'm like, no, I just do not want to drink tonight. It's just as simple. They're like, well, one wouldn't hurt. Are you driving? I'm not driving. I just do not want to partake tonight. And I've also been on the other end, and I'm like, oh, come on, and like have one. And
Sure.
it's hard being in both cases because sometimes when you're the person who set the constraint or the boundary, and then somebody is trying to encroach on that, it feels very disrespectful. You're like, okay, I clearly said no, just listen to me. And on the flip side, when you're the person, you're like, oh, come on, it's just fun. You're like, everybody's having a good time. And sometimes, at least when I do, it's like, I don't want that person to feel left out. So that's where the pressure comes from.
Yeah, of course. We're social creatures. We want everybody to engage in a similar fashion to, I don't want to say validate, but it really is validate what it is that we're doing. We want social validation. And the easiest way is, oh, this person is doing the same thing that I'm doing. This validates my action socially, and this is all right. Now, I just with everything, there are those levels to it. It's not all or nothing. There's when I say all or nothing in terms of severity of reaction, you have people that are like, oh, what you were describing, oh, just come on, it'll be okay. I mean, what's it gonna hurt? You can go back to the diet tomorrow. And then you have ones that are on the far opposite side that are like, I'm never speaking to you again if you don't partake in this activity. And you're like, oh, well, it's nice knowing you. I don't know what to say at that point. And to some extent, I'm sure that if you're listening to this and it is of some interest to you, you have some level of experience where that has happened. It's fallen somewhere within that wide range and possibly even beyond. I don't claim to know the full gambit of human experience here. But it's really frustrating because you're
Mhm.
like, well, what the fuck, man? I was trying to change, and now I try to change, and it's getting harder. Why is it getting harder? And what happens for a lot of us is we just stop. Think about it. I know people have experienced this example. Think about it like going to the gym at New Year's. First day, man, do you see a lot of people. Week 3, you see a
Uh,
couple.
as,
Yeah.
as an average gym goer, I could definitely tell you it is the most strangest skills. Basically, from December till being the most generous March, the gym is consistently full, and then April through October, that shit is the only people you really see are the regular. The people that you consistently see are the people that you see pretty much if you have a regular schedule, you see every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it really is. It's not that you did anything wrong. If anything, you did exactly what was right. Just because it got harder doesn't mean that we're doing it wrong. And I think that that's quite the paradox, because typically when we try to optimize anything, it's in the interest of making things easier, not making things harder. Making things harder is actually really counterintuitive for us. We don't want to make things harder. We want to be able to predict. We want to make things more simplistic. We want to be able to ingest things easier. All of these things, these are natural parts of how our brain operates, communicates signals.
Yeah.
But in this specific example, these people aren't responding the way that I want to. The field at large has not caught up yet. And it may be, I've lost plenty of friends because of things like that. It's just what happens. They don't fit your field at the time. That's okay. It's not a personal assault on you or anybody else. It just kind of is what it is. And I guess I've kind of alluded to it, but these are the kinds of things that we kind of that kind of happen when we start making those decisions. We either do what you're talking about, which is that more, I'm just going to retreat away and we're not going to worry about this. I'm not going to do it. It's okay. It wasn't that important in the first place. So it's okay. Let me remain inside of that field rather than crossing the threshold and moving beyond. Or we fall into that pattern where we just sit there and explain, well, this is happening and this is happening and this is happening and I got to do this and this and this and this and this. And it's okay. It's just not it sparks a different conversation than, no, it's okay. I'm good. If you start over explaining, then people can find holes in your logic. Well, I'm doing this for, I don't know, who knows? I decided not to eat Doritos because of yellow number 5 or whatever the fuck new weird ingredient is that they're putting into food. Some people be like, oh no, man, they removed that last week. And you're like, shit, there goes my excuse.
Yeah,
Right?
true. I think a good example is work. You're like, okay, after 5 p.m., I'm not responding to my boss's email anymore, or I'm cutting all work contact. And then
Mhm.
8 o'clock, you mind your business. You're at home, you get your feet up, you're watching TV or doing whatever. And then you get an email, you get a text. And then you send an
Mhm.
email to your boss being like, sir, ma'am, I like a work-life balance. Please do not email me after blah, blah, blah. I'm so stressed. Now that you start explaining yourself, now it's up to the because they could be like, well, sorry for texting you at 8. Maybe I could text you at 7. So that it becomes a negotiation of the boundary you set up. You're like, after 5,
Mhm.
I'm not
Right.
responding. So now you have, by explaining, you've really opened the door for debate. And sometimes it might seem rude And it's really hard to really, especially like when you're talking to the authority figure, to be like, after 5 o'clock, please do not contact me.
It's the same general idea. The second
Mhm.
that you start over explaining anything, people will find ways to poke holes in your explanation of things. Especially, it all comes back to, we want people to be similar. Not just similar, but we want people to behave in the
Fall
way
in
with
line.
which we expect them to behave. We're constantly predicting everything. So if Carlos starts acting in a new way, I wonder what's going on. And it's not, we don't distinguish whether it's a positive benefit or a negative benefit. We just register the change and say,
He's acting
okay.
brand new. He think he's better than us now. He wants something, or something must be wrong, or and nothing is wrong. I just wanted a change. It's just as simple as that. It has, n- and sometimes people take it as a personal slight on them. They're like, "Well, he's acting new toward me, so I must have done something, or he must feel somehow different about me." And it's like, it could be true. It could be true that there is some kind of friction and therefore I made a change. Or sometimes it could be as simple as, I've decided to make a change for me and you were not a factor in it.
I think it goes back to a bit about what we were talking about with the autonomic nervous system last week, because we tend, that and living with intention, all of those things kind of coupled in there. If we are not living with that intention and we're not carrying intention and purpose throughout our day, then we don't have that intention, purpose carrying through. If we're doing that right, then when somebody interacts with us and they say, "Hey man, I'm not eating those nasty ass Doritos tonight because I just don't want to." And maybe that's not, they don't put it so bluntly and they try to make it sound much nicer and politically correct. You can sit there and be like, "Oh, okay, that sounds good." Because you're not acting from the place where your autonomic nervous system is reacting rather than responding.
Mhm.
And just to kind of highlight all of that good stuff and tie it in with everything that we talked about last week, because that living with intention is still very, very important. And we can't expect, what we definitely can't do is we can't expect everybody around us to live with intention. Things happen. Life is quick. Life is very messy. It's not like, oh, well, I'm doing this so everybody should.
Mhm.
It doesn't necessarily do that. You've got to remember, you have spent, depending on how old you are, years, decades, building up this field that you are a part of and that you exist inside of. So when you decide to make changes, think about it. This is how this was how a friend of mine, a really, really long time ago, explained karma to me. It's not a bad, good or bad for what? But they said, if you plant a flower at the top of a hill, okay, there are things that are going to happen as a result of you planting that flower. You are going to water it every day, which means that you are going to take steps to go outside. You are going to get more sunlight. You're going to perform a couple more physical activities. And then the act of watering consequences is not the right word.
Feedback.
They have reactions down the line, because
Mhm.
if you're watering the soil, then the soil is getting more moist. It's all going to be healthier. This tree and these flowers over here are going to be more vibrant the next time that they grow. Everything that we do has these chains of events that we can't begin to predict. This was that whole idea of the butterfly effect. The
Mhm.
butterfly effect. Yeah, there we go. Effect. And so when we spent decades performing these actions, we can't just expect the wider world around us to just respond in the way that we expect it to respond to. We have to continue to take that decision on and keep going through, so that we can go ahead and actually make those structural changes in our lives. And I didn't want to use that word because that makes it seem a lot more daunting than it really is, but they are structural changes. Our social hierarchy, our ways of operating, while they are related to relational ways of being, they are also structurally ingrained with us. And so it becomes really important to understand that just because you're experiencing friction doesn't mean it's time to just be like, oh, it's okay. Don't worry. Friction is a mandatory part of the process. We know that it is not going to be a walk in the park. We identified this last week. Making these changes comes with a very, very severe emotional cost to it. And I say severe, but it's just depending on where you are at in that process, the severity changes. At the beginning, and you're like, oh, well, I'm going to stop drinking soda. Dude, nobody's going to give a shit if you stop drinking soda, because that's become a taboo for the most part anyway, at least depending on where your location is. And so it's not really the same. It would be like smoking now, smoking cigarettes. You're like, what the fuck, bro? Who are you? Bye.
You were talking about giving up things that people already have kind of made, accepted are bad for you. So the soda and the cigarette example out of that
Yeah, I
helps.
don't know what the point of that. I know I had a point with all of that. It really doesn't matter. I guess the point is just, oh yeah, because some of it's going to be easier and some of it's going to be harder. It's going to be a lot easier to quit smoking because people are going to be like, oh, dude, that's awesome, good for you. You don't smell like a fucking ashtray anymore. But when it's things that your friendships are built around, that's entirely different, and that comes with different levels of friction. That is going to be significantly harder than being like, I stopped drinking soda 3 weeks ago and haven't even looked back. It's not that it's I don't mean that in an addictive kind of way. I just mean it as what it is. When it comes to the being that we are so socially minded, anything that has to do with relational costs is going to hit harder.
Mm-hmm.
If your buddy's like, oh, I don't go to the gym, I do, I don't know, dancing in my free time.
So it's the accent and then the dancing. Those two things do not compute together.
No, I understand, but they're also none of them are compatible together. Neither the example nor what we're talking about. If you have somebody that you've been hanging out with a long time who has no desire to work out, and you're like, hey man, come to the gym with me, they're like, yep, ain't happening. It's not going to be a thing. There's not going to be an argument. There's not going to be whatever. But the friction cost is going to be real, because chances are eventually that friend is going to fall by the wayside, at least to some extent. Maybe not entirely. I can't. Nobody can predict exactly what you're from. I don't know how long you've been friends. There's a lot of factors that go into that. I'm not.
There's a lot of. In my opinion, it's like if you come to the gym with me, your friends, I just want to be a fat piece of shit. You can be like, well, that's your prerogative. You can just move on with your life and then hang out with them. I think what you're talking about is if the activity that you were proposing for them to either stop or start doing is one of the basis of the friendship. If you guys, I think a better example is you guys were going to the gym together always, and that's how the friendship built. And then you're like, I don't want to go to the gym anymore. I don't want to go lifting anymore. I want to go do Zumba as my way of quote unquote working out. Then that can obviously lead to the friendship being going separate ways.
Yeah. And I think this is just worth saying, just to kind of give you the flip side. if you decide that you want to start getting on a more consistent sleep schedule, the only thing standing in the way is you. Maybe a $5 app a month for a better alarm clock or something, or a sleep tracker, whatever your level of preference is in that.
Unless you are, obviously there are certain circumstances. We're not saying if you're a newborn, if you have a newborn or something, that's totally different. I don't want people to be like, blah, 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 I have this going on.
Right.
Obviously, there
Well,
are
no. So
circumstances.
but that's what I'm saying. That's the point. Is if you don't have a kid, if you don't have any of these things, and it's just you,
Yeah.
it's just you against you. But if you're trying to make actual changes that have not actual changes, but if you're trying to enact those changes across any sort of, we're trying to enact those changes across any social domain, the likelihood of increased friction goes up exponentially. It's just how it is, because you are reshaping. Okay, if we come back to my example of planting a flower, if there are no trees around, absolutely none, and I just plant one flower on one hillside, okay, that is affecting much less. But it's also going to start wearing away soil. So there are some less than desirable factors in that, and the hillside could diminish a little bit. However, if there are tons of flowers around or tons of trees around, then that watering affects everybody, but to different extents, because maybe the bigger tree is going to soak up all of the water. Maybe there's a little flower that didn't end up getting enough because there's too much going on and ends up dying. There are so many possible outcomes when we start changing things that affect other people that we're bound to hit friction. It's just not possible. And so what that kind of brings us to, and this is really the hard part, when you begin to do those things and people tend to notice, you tend to become socially isolated, at least a little bit, for a bit of an extent. I'm not saying that that is persistent forever, but at the beginning, that social isolation takes a real load. And you're sitting there going, well, was this worth it? Is this really what I wanted? Am I sure that I'm doing the right thing? Any number of questions can begin to take shape and form when we are imposing new constraints in our lives. Because, again, it's never desirable for a social creature to lose social connections. And that doesn't matter if you have hundreds, that doesn't matter if you have 3. The only thing that changes is the varying degree to which it affects you. If you got 3 and you just lost 2, that's going to be a different internal response than if you have 100 and 1 fell away. You're like, man, I'm sure I'll replace them with 2 more later. You know what I mean? But again, no matter what, you have some sort of internal response to everything that happens. It's not just, oh, okay, I made a decision. I went out. I don't want to say impose that decision on people, because that's not necessarily the case. I informed them that my constraint will be taking effect. And now, not only do I have to hear it from them, but I also have to hear it from me. There's no way that I'm getting out of this unscathed, at least to some extent. And that experience then begins to shape my mental health landscape, what it is that I'm those decisions that are made from there are going to dictate a lot about what my mental health ends up coming out to be. If I get that, I go out and I'm like, I'm not eating those Doritos, and 5 people are like, dude, you're such a loser. Why aren't you just eating those Doritos? I'm going to have a lot to process on that one. Then I'm going to have a lot to process on my own.
Because you
On
said that,
top,
like, am I a loser? Why don't I want to eat the Doritos? I've eaten the
right,
Doritos in the past. Nothing
right.
hasn't drastically changed my life or made it for either the better or the worse. So I could keep eating the Doritos and I could I don't want to say it's not that you're gonna lose your friends, but I can still have the same experience that I used to have with my friends before as I did, now that I don't want to eat the Doritos. And it just becomes a cycle of
Mm-hmm.
questions that you ask yourself about this.
Right.
W- Sometimes minute or indifferent question that you just, or boundary that you just put up for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that is, we have to keep this in mind. That is only one piece of the puzzle. You don't only exist inside of a social field. You exist inside a couple of others as well. And so all while trying to manage this, you also have to manage all of this. And so it comes back to that cognitive stack. We just keep adding more and more and more and more. It is no wonder. It's no wonder why people give up within 3-4 days, a week, 2 weeks, whatever. It doesn't matter, because those costs that are associated with making changes become sometimes too much for us to bear. We've all heard the term, those lead to fuck it days. If you've been doing it long enough, you will know exactly what the fuck it day is, because you're just like, nah, man, I'm good. I don't have it today. Today is not the day. I'm not fighting it. We just giving in. I don't care. I'm eating those Doritos. And maybe that comes 6 months to a year in. You're like, dude, I'm doing great. And it's okay. It is what it is. You don't sit there and whatever and keep fighting it, because the good news is, Carlos, what's the good news?
It'll work out. I'm not sure what.
Right. It'll work out eventually.
So I was like,
No. That's perfect. I eventually it all ends up recalibrating to you. You just have to hold on long enough.
no.
And
I can give a personal example. Going back to the gym, starting from when I started going to the gym, it was terrible because you don't, I don't know, it's not that it got harder, it's just it felt monotonous. And sometimes other thing is, progress is very slow. And you'll go for a month, you'll be like, I've been putting in 112% for a month, and whatever your ultimate goal is, maybe you want to lose weight or you want to put on muscle, you're like, I'm not seeing the difference.
Mhm.
And it really takes, because it takes time, and as humans, we are slightly impatient people, because that's just our nature.
Right.
Some of us have more of it than others, but on the aggregate, we're really impatient people. We want things now. And again, time is slow, and progress is sometimes very slow to see ultimately see those to see the fruition of things. So if the progress is slow, and people are also tempting you along the way and questioning why you're doing the thing, it's very easy to go, well, I'm not seeing the results that I want to see. And I was fine. I was sort of fine before, kind of, sort of. So I guess I can give up and it'll be fine. And that's a trap that people fall into. And sometimes you just have to not necessarily tune out. You hear the people, you go, I hear you, but this is not up for debate. It's just what I want to do for myself. I see your points. Your points are valid for you, but not necessarily for me. And you keep pushing through, and ultimately it comes back to that thing where on the whole, it calibrates back to you. And now as a person, I can go there if I go and deal with that, the gym, it's because something happened and I'm very busy or I'm sick.
Hmm.
I need it's something that I have incorporated into my personal life on the daily.
And I think there are a couple of things that you mentioned that are definitely worth highlighting.
You're dead.
It brings up a couple of things, right? The one thing that I was thinking of is we've talked a lot about how people respond negatively. Okay, that's a thing. Totally. People are going to respond negatively at first. They may surprise you in the long term though and end up being supportive of you.
Mhm.
They also may surprise you and be supportive right off the break. You're never going to be able to tell which it is because you don't know what their social expectations are in the first
Mhm.
place. So it could be I you don't know is my primary point
Yeah.
and all that, and that's not that big of a deal. But while you were talking, what I began to think of, there was, what movie was that? It was it was The Girl Next Door. And the whole movie was just about this guy chasing the girl next door. And dude gets his ass kicked, all sorts of crazy shit, all kinds of just outrageous things happen. And the guy causing most of it just looked at him and was like, at some point, you just have to ask yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze? And you're like, oh, well, that makes so much sense when you put it that way. That's really all we are talking about. And that's what will ultimately determine whether or not you are successful or not in those endeavors, because you will either determine that the juice is definitely worth the squeeze, or you will determine this wasn't it. This wasn't what I was thinking about doing. I didn't sign up for this and I'm going to recalibrate. And that's okay too. I know we've really pushed this idea really hard of when you make those decisions and try to make those changes, you have to stick with it because the friction's coming. And yes, that is 100% true. But we have talked about prior to this that you can begin to take action and recalibrate on the way. That's completely fine. It may be that you start a new diet and you're like, I'm going to eliminate everything. And it doesn't work out the way that you thought it was, and that's okay. So you recalibrate. You eliminate 2 things, and that's okay, and that gets you to move forward. Great. You have just found a successful formula for improving one aspect of your life that you can comfortably and reliably carry into the future. I'm excited. That's awesome. But that's not always the case because we either bite off too much, we get bogged down with other things, and then when we run into those retreat or over-explaining examples and we're like, fuck it, we lost it, then we failed. And, that couldn't be, for recalibrating is not failure. None of this stuff is failure. It is just information. Everything is about getting information. That friction that you experience is information. That loss of 3 friends because you decided to stop eating Doritos is information. Yes, they are facts. Sure that this happened, but they are not an indication upon your ultimate success in achieving this or not. It's just information about the world around you. And maybe, just maybe, you get to the point you're like, hey, I did this for 3 months. Maybe I need to start making some of those more environmental changes that those people are talking. One little bit getting the ball rolling does light years for us, does light years for our mental well-being, because the second that we do that, we're like, fuck yeah, I did something. I stopped eating Doritos. Yes.
Well, it's it. I think that it's. I think what we're talking about is it's how life really is. Because look, you want to do something or you don't want to do something, you get information about it, and you're going to get a lot of people's opinion on it. And what you really do is you sit with that information and you take that information, you go, literally like a computer, you process it and you go, you know what? Ultimately, this is what I want. And I'm going to go with it. And then you talk to those people and you go, hey, next time if I'm out and I'm like, I don't want to eat a Dorito, please do not do not try to pressure me or do not try to. And if they can't do it, you go, you know what? Thank you so much. It's been, well, unless it's family, you go. And if it's like a casual for you go, you know what? It's been nice to knowing you. I'm just not going to interact with you in that manner anymore. And you make that choice for you and literally you recalibrate and you go and you move on about your life. And obviously the first couple months of this is going to be tense and new, but slowly it becomes part of you. And once something is part of you, other people begin to accept it and it becomes part of the system as well. And that greater structural change.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That is perfect. Or well said, I should say. And then I think to that end, we can provide you with a nice little reflection. When you made a change that mattered, who pushed back first and how did you respond? Or what happened initially? Maybe not who pushed back first, but what happened in those initial moments socially is really what we're talking about. So examine kind of how that looked and then how you responded to it. Because once we know how to respond to it, we can go ahead and make those changes.
Yeah. The field didn't push back because you did something wrong. That's what we've been talked about. It's pushing back because you did find something finally right. And as we talked about, people do not react well when they lose access to you or you don't fall into certain patterns. And you have to be aware of how to navigate those situations. If you've placed a constraint and felt a pushback, a session works on exactly that structure at the inactive.com.
That's where we'll leave it for today.
You don't need to do anything with it right now.
Each episode this season will end with a question worth carrying.
Not an answer, just a place to look.
If this is your first time here, you're welcome to follow the show. New episodes drop weekly.
And if you want to go deeper, find us at theactive.com.
We'll be back next week.
Until then, notice what you're already designing your field.
And whether that's by choice.